How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Zayin, Daf 87 of Masechta Sanhedrin, friends. Your friends. Today we're starting the sugya of Zakin Mamre. This is going to take us 2 days. This Mishnah of Zakin Mamre. Although the truth is, I guess, kind of, maybe even a little bit more than that. But anyways, 2-3 days. Zakin Mamre. So, it says in Mishnah, on Daf Pevav Amud Beis, on the first of the wide lines of the Daf, Zakin Mamre Api Bezdin. So this is be'etzim a scenario where you have Bezdin rules a certain way, and then there is a maverick, an outlier, who, as we're going to see, is himself a mumche, right? He's not like a nobody, he's somebody special. And he disagrees with the Bezdin, and he has his own way of looking at things, and he's telling people to paskin that the psak is his way, which is in opposition, or is against, is in contrast, is in oppositeness of what the position of Bezdin. So for that, the punishment is chenek. Zakin Mamre Api Bezdin shenemar ki palim imcha davar lamishpat, etc. Right, as the pasuk has that whole parsha of Zakin Mamre over there. I got something in my throat. 1 second. All right, hopefully I solved the problem. I don't think I did. All right, I guess I'll have to live with it for now. So shlosha batei din hayusham. So there were 3 batei dinin on Har HaBois. Echad yoshev al Pesach Har HaBois. One of these bezdins of 23 was at the entrance to the Temple Mount. Echad yoshev al Pesach Hazor. One of them was further in, right by the Azore. Echad yoshev b'lishkas hagozis. And the Sanhedrin Hagadol was, of course, in the Lishkas Hagozis in the temple. Now, boin lozish al Pesach Har. So what happens is you have the Zakin Mamre who disagrees with the local Bezdin in his town where he lives. So they come to Yerushalayim. He comes along with his local Bezdin, and boin lozish al Pesach Har, and they arrive, the Zakin Mamre with the Bezdin arrive at the Bezdin at the entrance of Har HaBois. V'omer, and the Zakin Mamre says, Kach Rashi, this is how I expounded. Now my colleagues over here, my friends over here in the Bezdin, they are darshaned thus. Kach limativ kach limdu chaver. This is how I taught, and this is how my colleagues taught. Im shamu omrim loim. Now, if this Bezdin that they came to at the Pesach Har HaBois knew the answer to the query, so that Bezdin will already say, look, this is the answer to the query, you're dismissed, and they wouldn't, and that was that. But if that Bezdin doesn't know the answer, so then the Zakin Mamre together with the Bezdin move on, and they go to the second Bezdin that was on Har HaBois, V'omer, and the Zakin Mamre says, Kach dorashtiv, kach dorshu chaver, kach limativ, kach limdu chaver. This is how I learned, this is how my friends learned, this is how I taught, and this is how my friends taught. Im shamu, if this Bezdin knew the answer, omrim loim, they would give the answer. V'im lav, elu v'elu boin the Bezdin, agadol shublish kas agoz, shemimenu yotzei torah l'chol Yisrael. And if both the first 2 Bezdins did not know the answer, so then the party would move on to the Lishkas Hagozis. Then the Zakin Mamre, together with his local Bezdin, would move on to the Lishkas Hagozis, the Sanhedrin Gedola. As we said, Shemimenu Yotzei Torah L'Chol Yisrael, that from there, Torah spreads out and goes out, disseminates to all of Israel. Shenemar, the Apostle says, Min Amokim Ahu, from that place, Asher Yivcha Hashem, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will choose. So now they already came to Har HaBois, and the Bezdin there paskind unlike the Zakin Mamre, right? So Zakin Mamre disagreed with the Bezdin, and the Sanhedrin sided with the Bezdin, not with the Zakin Mamre. Now the Zakin Mamre goes back to his town, and Shana V'Limei K'derech Sha'olomid, but he continued to teach in the same way that he initially did. potter. He's still potter. V'mohora lasos chayiv. But if he taught to do, so then he's chayiv. Right? If he told, so to teach is one thing, but to say do like I say, and not like the Bezdin backed by the Sanhedrin says, well then he's chayiv chenek. Shneimar, as the Paul says, va'isha asher yaiseh bizodin, that a person who does bizodin in chayiv ad shir laisos, the Zaken Mamre is only chayiv once he teaches to do. Excuse me. Okay. Talmud guys, scratch an itch. Talmud shahora lasos potter nimtzachumu kula. Now a Talmud, right. So the Zaken Mamre is somebody who's he's a mumche, he's a special person, he's an expert. But if you have a student who did this and he taught in order to do it differently than the Bezdin, potter. He is potter. Nimtza chumro kulo. So it turns out that the stringency that we have towards a student, which is that he's not able to paskin, right, to paskin on his own because he's only a student, right? The stringency that we have towards a student, that he's only a student, he can't paskin, ends up being a leniency, which is that if he paskins differently than the Bezdin, he is going to be potter because he's not in a position to actually be. He's not an expert. Only an expert would be chayiv for being a zaken. So now this is going to be an important brisa. This brisa that we're bringing up now, because this brisa is going to take us well into tomorrow's daf. This is a brisa with lots and lots of details, and we are going to literally flesh out each and every detail over the next 2 days. When it says ki pole mimcha davar, this is in the context of Zaken Mamre. So ki pole, so b'mufla shebezin akosim davar, we're talking about an expert. So the Zaken Mamre here is an expert. It's not just a random Tom, Dick, or Harry. Mimcha ze yoyetz. So when it says ki pole mimcha means yoetz, and as we're gonna learn soon, that yoetz means that he's disagreeing with regard to Ibor HaChodesh, a halacha related to leaping a month. And how do I know that Mimcha is a reference to yoetz, which is a reference when yoetz is Ibor HaChodesh? It says, Mimech yotza choshev al Hashem ro'a yoetz bliyal. So we see in that pasuk it says Mimech and it says yoetz. So we see that Mimech is a reference to yoetz, and yoetz is, as we're going to see, a reference to Ibor HaChodesh. Dover zay alache. When it says Dover, it's halacha l'Moshe Misina. If he disagrees with the Bezdin with regard to halacha l'Moshe Misina, la mishpat ze adin. Mishpat is a reference to Gezeira Shava. If he disagrees with them with regard to Gezeira Shava, ben dam ledam, ben dam nida, dam leda, dam ziva. If he disagrees with the Bezdin with regard to either dam nida or dam leda or dam ziva, we're going to flesh out all of these things soon. You don't worry. Bezdin ben din ledin, ben din nefashos din imaminus din imakis. Whether he disagrees with them regarding din nefashos din imaminus or din imakis. Ben nega lo nega, ben nige adam, nige bottom, nige begadim. When it says nega, that's tsaras. Whether it's tsaras of a person, tsaras of a house, tsaras of garments. Divrei elachram barachim v'akdeshos. When we say divrei, it's referring to cherims, erichs, and hektishes. Rivos. Zo ashkoyas sot v'arifas egla v'tarius mitzor. Rivos is a reference to hashkoyas sota, giving a sota to drink, to make sota v'arifas egla, and hacking off the head of a calf in response to a corpse, right? Finding a corpse, right? Egla rufa, v'tarius mitzora, and the purification of Mitzvah. Bisharecha, in your gates, zo leket shichicha. It's a reference to the halachos of leket, shichicha, and peah. Okay, we are going to flesh out all of these things. We will begin in just a few minutes, and we will conclude tomorrow. I assume tomorrow, unless I get the inspiration to just get through all of it today. But I doubt I'm going to be inspired to do that. Okay. Now. V'kamta, and it says that you go up, mi bezdin, right? V'kamta v'alisa l'makom, right? That's what it says, right? v'kamta mi Bezdin, you get up from Bezdin v'alisa, and you go up to Yerushalayim Melamed. It teaches Beis Hamikdash gavoya mi Eretz Yisrael. That the Beis Hamikdash is higher up than the rest of Eretz Yisrael. It says go up to the Beis Hamikdash. Eretz Yisrael gavoya mikol ha'arotzos. Now, as a side note, Eretz Yisrael is higher up than all of the rest of the lands. Ela mokim, when it says mokim, mokim gorim, that the mokim causes, meaning it's critical that the Sanhedrin is there in the Lishkas Agazis, and that is where they paskin. They can't paskin from anywhere else when they're establishing the halacha for Zaken Mamri. Now, Bishlam Beis Hamikdash gavoya me'eretz Yisrael dichsev. So I understand the notion that the Beis Hamikdash is taller than the rest of Eretz Yisrael. It says you will go up to the Beis Hamikdash. So clearly the Beis Hamikdash, wherever you are, you're going to go up to it. It's the highest place in Eretz Yisrael. How do we know that Eretz Yisrael is higher than all the rest of the lands? Of course, when Yidden moved to Eretz Yisrael, it's called Aliyah, that they make Aliyah, that they go up to Eretz Yisrael. And it's called making Aliyah no matter no matter from where you're coming from United States of America, England, Australia, wherever it is. It's always called making aliyah. It's always called moving up. The Pasuk says, that the days are coming, says the Rebbeinu Shalom. They will no longer say, by the life of God, I guess, that brought up the Yidden from Eretz Yisrael. Ki im chaya shemeshar helo v'sher hevi ezer beis Yisrael me'eretz tzafonu mikol ha'arotzos asher yidachtem sham v'yoshu al admosim. Not just the Rebbeinu Shalom took us out of Egypt and took us up from Egypt, but the Rebbeinu Shalom took us up from all of the places where we were. And I think the point is that no matter where it is, He took us up from there. I.e., it's always considered going up to Eretz Yisrael. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis. So this is going to be really important. So here's a machlokes about what is the nature of the subject on which the Zaken Mamri disagrees with the local Bezdin. So here we see the opinion of Reb Meir that when we're talking about Zaken Mamri, that ultimately could be Chayiv Chenek, we're talking about that he's disagreeing with the local Bezdin with regard to something that if you do intentionally you're chayiv kares, and by accident you're chayiv a korban chatas. That is the nature of the topic that we're talking about. But if he, I don't know, but if he disagrees with them regarding, I don't know, do you have to wear tzitzis or not? That he wouldn't be a zakin mamre for that, because it's not something that's chayiv al shigos chatas ve'al zdonei kares. Okay. So Zaken Mamre in a chayv elo al davar shezdoi kares v'shigos chatas of Meir. Meir says that a Zaken Mamre is only liable, can only get chenek for being a Zaken Mamre if he disagrees regarding a topic, a mitzvah, that in transgressing it you chayiv kares intentionally, and if you transgress by accident you be chayiv korban chatos. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that he disagrees with his local Bezdin on something that is written in the Torah, right? The source of it is from the Torah, but it's described by Torah Shebal Peh, right? That we rely upon Torah Shebal Peh to explain to us what the halacha in the Torah is. Okay. And as we're going to see later on today, hopefully, tomorrow. For example, tefillin, right? The Torah says we have to put on tefillin, but we rely on Torah Shebal Peh to, that there's like 4 boxes in the Shel Rosh, for example. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon says, no, even if the Zaken Mamre disagrees with the local Bezdin, and just a very detailed prat of something midrabanan. Still, if he disagrees, that could be right. If the local Bezdin says one thing and he disagrees and he tells people to do it a different way, even for that he could be liable for chenek as a Zaken Mamre. My time with Reb Meir. How come Reb Meir says that it's dafka something that you chayiv al zdonei kares v'ashigos chatas gomer dover. Because he makes a gzeir shav of dover. Ksevach, it says by Zokin Mamri ki yipalim imcha dover lamish baruch sev awesome, and it says by a parhelim dover shel tzibor, which we're going to learn about soon-ish. We still have to do makish shvuis, avodah zarah, I think then Adis, and then we get to Masechta Horius. I guess it's going to be the last Masechta in Seder Nezikin before we get to Seder Kodshim. It's all about Parlim Dover Shal Tzibor. If Bezdin paskins a certain halacha and all the Yidden therefore do based on the psak, and it turns out that they made a mistake, V'nelim Dover me'ene kol kol Malhalan Dover shechayev as dono koz v'ashigos uchatas. So by Parlim Dover Shal Tzibor, it's something that you chayev intentionally kars and by accident chatas. Afkan Dover shechayev as dono koz v'ashigos uchatas. There here also by Zakin Mamre, says Rab Meir, we're talking about Davar Chayiv al Zonokos Vashigoso Chatas. For Rab Yehuda, the Rab Yehuda says that it's something that is be'etzem from Divrei Torah, but is explained by Torah Shabbat Peh. Rab Yehuda al pi atera asher yorucha achi adika Torah v'yorucha. There has to be Torah and yorucha. There has to be something that it's ikra, that it's course from the Torah, but is explained by Torah Shabbat Peh. Reb Shimon says even the tiniest detail you could be a zaken mamre for. Asher agidu l'cha min amokim hahu afilu koldu. That when it says that which the Bezdin will tell you from that place, afilu koldu, even if it's just a small thing. Okay, so now we get to what I had said we were going to get to. Chevra, this is going to be a mission. Basically, that brisa that we quoted at the beginning, right, the very beginning of the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, I'm just going to read it quickly. Tana Rabbanan, I don't know how much we can read it, but just to remind us, a refresher. Tana Rabbanan, ki palim mimcha davar, b'miltva shemaz l'kazav davar. Mimcha ze yoetz, v'chein omer, okay, and they said, davar zo halacha, l'mishpat ze adin, beidam adin. Damnida, Damleda, Damziva, Bedin, Nefosh, Din, etc. There were like lots of details of things that a person could be a zaken mamre for. And now says the Gemara, Omerle Rav Huna bar Chinan ali Rav Huna says to Rav, Tirgema li lo masnisa ali b'der meir. Oh, you hear this? Rav Huna bar Chinan says to Rava, can you please explain to me this brisa that I just refreshed us on, that gives all those details about the different things that a zaken mamre could be a zaken mamre for? And Rav Huna bar Chinan asked from Rava, can you go through that brisa for me, please? And according to Rab Meir says that a zaken mamre is only chayiv for something shechayiv al zdono kares v'ashigos uchatas. So Rav Huna bar Chinan asked Rava, can you explain to me how for every single one of those examples, what would be the machlokes where there's machlokes between the zaken mamre and the bezdin that revolves around something that you chayiv al zdono kares v'ashigos uchatas, right? For example, right, if we say for example, dini momenis, dini nefashos, dini makis. What's the case of dini momenis? That would be Masru Shachayv as dono karis vashigos uchastos, and by dine nefashos, and by dine makis. But go through every single case and tell me that in this particular case, what is the angle where it would be chayv as dono karis vashigos uchatos that the zaken mamre disagrees with the other bezdin, and it's a topic that regards davar chayv as dono karis vashigos uchatos. So Rava says, wow, this sounds like a headache. He says so he defers to Rav Papa. He says, Rav Papa, pog tirgum alei, Rav Papa, you go through the brisa and explain it to Rav Huna bar Chinan case by case. Here we go. Okay, fine. Let's just get that out of the way. That when it says ki yipale in the pasuk, we're talking about an expert. We're not just talking about a Tom, a Dick, or a Harry. Mimcha ze yoetz. So when it says mimcha, that's a reference to a yoetz, an advisor. We're talking about somebody who knows how to leap years and establish months. Now, what is leaping years and establish months? What does that have to do with kares? Kiditznan, as we learn in a Mishnah. Heidu, I believe is Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papias. They testified in Masechta Eidius, Shema'abim es Ashana kol other. that they say that we can leap a year all of Adar, right? Meaning, right, a leap year, of course, is 2 Adars. So you have the entire Adar, you have up until the last day of Adar to say, you know what, we're going to add another Adar. Now, if that's the case, and that means that Purim already passed when they're saying we're going to add another Adar, which means that they already celebrated Purim. Also, Sharlim V'Darshim B'Ilchos Pesach, Shloshim B'Kodem L'Chag, right, Pesach. So already on Purim already, you're starting to learn Hilchos Pesach, and all of a sudden, on the last day of Adar, we say, actually, I know you already celebrated Purim, I know you already started learning Hilchos Pesach, but it's actually, you're not 2 weeks away from Pesach, you're 6 weeks away from Pesach. Imagine what kind of balagan that would cause. Shayu Omrim Ara Purim, because otherwise, the established opinion was you can only leap the year up until Purim, because otherwise people are going to get confused. But they had testified that you can leap the year all the way up to the end of Adar. The ilahai gisa kosher chametz bepaisich, vilahai gisa kosher chametz bepaisich, and therefore, if you have this machlokes, right, the local bezdin says one way, says, I don't know, only until Purim, and then the Zaken Mamre is saying, no, you could do the Gantz month. So then you have a mess where nobody knows what to do, who to trust, and you're going to have people going to end up eating chametz on Pesach, and that's a chiyuv kares, right? Ilahai so whether the bezdin says the whole month and the Zaken Mamre says up until Purim, or whether the Zaken Mamre says the whole month and the local bezdin says up until Purim, either way you're going to have a balagan and people are going to end up eating chametz on Pesach, and that's a chiyuv kares. Dover, when we say Dover, ze halacha. That's reference to halacha l'Moshe Misinai. What's this? What's the halacha l'Moshe Misinai? Zo hilchis achar osir. It's the halachas of the 11th. The 11th what? Let's go weiter. The idmar asiri Reb Yechanan omer asiri ketshi, Reb Shimon ben Lakish omer asiri keachar osir. Reb Yechanan omer asiri ketshi, machi bo yishimur asiri bo yishimur, Rish Lakish omer asiri keachar osir, ma'achar osir lo bo yishimur, asiri lo bo yishimur. Shnaikis. Woo! Who can tell me what this is talking about? This is like straight up Masechta Nida. I feel like we haven't Masechta Nida stuff hasn't come up that often in the last 5 years. But this is a very Masechta Nida-y kind of thing. So, be'etzem, the way that it works is that there's a Nida, which is a woman who sees blood, dam. So then she becomes a Nida, Mida Oraisa, she becomes a Nida for 7 days. Now, nowadays, I believe that we just say that whenever a woman sees dam, we assume it's dam nida, and you just, every time you see dam, you wait 7 days from that day. But mida oraisa, however, when a woman sees dam, it could be dam nida, or it could also be something called dam ziva. And there are differences. Dam nida, you wait 7 days from the day that you initially see it. And even if during those 7 days there's more occurrences of dam, it doesn't matter. You count 7 days from the first day. Mide o raisa. Again, mide o rabbanan, we say every time you see dam, wait 7 days. Now, okay, so dam nida is, you see dam, you wait 7 days, and then after 7 days, you're no longer a nida. Now, for the following 11 days, for the next 11 days, I guess this is why they say that Masechta Nida is hard, because the whole time you're like doing these kind of calculations. But I didn't think it was that hard. I guess it takes time to talk it out though. Now, during the following 11 days, following Nida, so then if a woman sees dam, she does not need to Mida Oraisa wait 7 days. She's Tameh that day, but then the next day she already goes to the mikvah, and she's a Tfulas Yom. And then, if she does not see dam the following day, so then she's okay, so done. It was a 1 day thing. If she does see dam that day, now it's a second day in a row during this 11-day period, well then she has to wait another day. Okay, now on day 3, she goes, I believe that this is correct, that she goes to the mikvah, and as long as she does not see dam that day, well, okay, we say, okay, so it was happened 2 days in a row, but okay, forget it. Day 3, there was no dam. okay, done, no big deal. But if on day 3 she also sees dam during this 11-day period, well then she's what's called a zava. And a zava now needs to wait 7 days without seeing any dam. And at the end of the 7 days, she brings a korban. So that's the halachas of nida and ziva. Right, that a woman sees dam, she's a nida for 7 days. They don't have to be 7 days without seeing dam, just she's a nida for 7 days. At the end of the 7 days, she is no longer a nida. Now, for the following 11 days, following the 7 days of nida, if she sees dam, she now has to wait the next day. And if she doesn't see dam the next day, then, done, no concern. If she does see dam, then she has to wait a third day. If she sees 3 days in a row, then she becomes a zava. Now, let's say she was a nida, okay, and then a nida for 7 days. Now she's in the 11-day period following the 7 days of nida. Now, it's day 11. Once you get up to day 11, and you see dam on day 11, so it's basically, you know that you're not going to be a zava, because if you then see dam on day 12, well, then the 11-day period is already done, which means that any dam that you would see, meaning when you're a nida, and then you're a nida for 7 days, and then you're in this 11-day period for 11 days, obviously. After the 11-day period, any dam you see would already make you a nida once again. Right? So if you have on day 11 and 7 is 18, so if on day 19, right, so you saw a dam on day 1, and then you were a nida for 7 days, and then there were this 11-day period went by, no dam, and then on day 19, you see dam, well then you're a nida again for the next 7 days. If during that period, on day 15, for example, you see dam, well then you have to be shomer yom kineged yom. You're not a nida for 7 days, right? That's during the 11-day period. So now, if on day 11 of the 11-day period, she sees dam, well, obviously she's not going to be a zava, because the following day, if she sees dam, well, that would just make her a nida again, because it's after the 11-day period. So if on day 11 she sees dam, she doesn't have to be shomer yom kineged yom. Now, right, because that the point there is to see if she's going to be a zava. And she's not, because any dam that she sees following that would make her a nida again. Now, what if she sees dam on day 10? That is what we're talking about. The question is, if she sees dam on day 10 of these 11 days, does she need to wait shomer yom kineged yom on day 11? Even though she can't actually be a zava, because if she sees dam also on day 12, well, day 12 is already after the 11 days, and she would just be a nida again. So do we say that she needs to be shomer yom kineged yom or not? That is our machlokas. Wow. There's going to be some more of this coming up also on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis. Where are we? So, Davar ze halacha. Davar is halacha l'Moshe Misinai, and zo hilchos achad osir. That is a reference to the halachas of the 11th day of the 11-day period of Ziva, let's call it. The Itmar Asiri, when it comes to day 10, right, if there was no dam during this 11-day period up until day 10, now on day 10 there's dam. So Rabbi Yechanan Omer says, Rabbi Yechanan Asiri Kichi. So Rabbi Yechanan says that day 10 is like day 9. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omar Asiri Kachad Osor, whereas Rish Lakish says day 10 is like day 11. Rabbi Yechanan Omer Asiri Kichi. Rabbi Yechanan says that day 10 is like day 9. Machi ba yishimor, just like on day 9 if you see dam. So you have to be on guard for the next 3 days. Because if you see dam on day 9, day 10, and day 11, well then she would be a zava. Well, afasir ba yishimor, so also on day 10 if there's dam, so then on day 11 she has to be shomer yom kineged yom, even though there isn't actually any chance of her being a zava, since day 12 already she would be a nida. Rish Lakish says that day 10 is like day 11, just like day 11 you would not require shimor, so also day 10, just like on day 11 you would not require shimor on day 12, since that's already the Yemei Nida. So if there's dam, so then also if there's dam on day 10, you don't need shimor on day 11. Now, how does this tie into karis? Well, because we're talking about dam nida, we're talking about a shomer yom kineged yom. If somebody is bol nida, right? If somebody has bia with the shomer yom kineged yom, so then that's a chiyuv karis. So according to Rish Lakish, on day, so if you see so if there's dam on day 10, so in terms of day 11, Rish Lakish says that you don't need to, she's not a Shemes Yom Kineged Yom. According to Rabbi Yochanan, she is a Shemes Yom Kineged Yom, and there's nafkamidas if she's going to be Chayiv Karis, and if there's a Chiyuv Karis, if she has Bia on that day. So this is a Machlokes, that if the Zaken Mami paskins one way, and the local Bezdin another way, we're talking about something that could lead to a Chiyuv Karis. Mishpat Ze'adin. Mishpat is like Gezerah Shavas. Din Bito Me'anusaso. Oh, we learned all about this in the last parak in Elu and Nisrafin, Bito Ma'anusaso. Right, his daughter from somebody who was an ones, and there's a daughter. So, is there chiyuv kares for sleeping with his daughter Bito Me'anusaso or not? That was learned out from the Gzer Shava of Asya Hena Asya Zima Zima. Damarava Amali Rav Yitzchak by Avudimi Asya Hena Asya Zima Zima. There was learned out from that Gzer Shava. So if you say of the Gzer, so if you hold of that, if you hold like that, so then there's a chiyuv kares for sleeping with your daughter. If not, then there isn't. And again, so if there's this machlokes between the Zaken Mamre and the local Bezdin, it's regarding something that could lead to a chiyuv kares. Bein dam ledam, getting back to bloods. Bein dam nida, dam leda, dam ziva. Dam nida, what's the machlokes by dam nida? Beflukta da akavye b'malalo ve'abonor. It's not that it's taught in the Mishnah. It's dama yorik. When it comes to green blood, akavye b'malalo m'tameh v'chacham m'tarin. Akavye b'malalo says green blood is tameh. The chacham say it is tahor. And therefore, the shaila is, if she sees this dam, is she a nida or not? And of course, there are going to be implications for chiyuv kares for sleeping with a nida. Dam leda, birth blood, right? So of course, if a woman gives birth, so then if it's a boy, for 7 days, any dam that she sees is dam tuma. But then for the next 33 days, any dam that she sees is fine. It's not dam tuma, it's dam tahara. It doesn't make her tummy. Okay, and for a girl, it's 14 days of Dmei Tuma and 66 days for Dmei Tara. So, Dam Leda beplukta de Rav v'Levi. De itma Rav, Amar says Rav, Mayon echod hu ator tumoso v'ator tiharto v'Levi Amar shnei mayon nosein nistam atome niftach ator nistam ator niftach atome. What does that mean? So according to Rav, let's say, basically the way that Rav treats it is that the Torah, as far as the Torah is concerned, there could be even like one, right? How does Rav say it? Rav mayon echaru, it's one flow. Kilu, we can view it even as like one flow of dam from day 1 of this long period, and it's just like keeps on flowing through, let's say for a girl, through day 14, through day 80, right, for the following 66 days, 66 and 14 is 80, through day 80, and just, magically, on day 15, this flow becomes tahor, and on day 81, it becomes tameh once again. Whereas Levi says, no, any flow originating from the first 14 days would be tameh. Any flow originating from the following 66 days would be tahor. Any dam originating then after that 66-day period is dam tameh again. What's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is, what if there is a flow that began during the 14-day period and continued then into the 66-day period? According to Rav says, well, magically on day 15, the flow now becomes tahor. Whereas, and then also any flow that originated during the 66-day period and flowed into the period following that would just magically become tameh on day 81. Whereas Levi says that no, you wait for the flow to stop, right? So if the flow originated during the first 14 days and continued flowing, into the 66 days, you wait for it to stop, and that entire flow would be tameh. And once it stops, now any new flow would be tahor. And let's say you have now a flow originating in the 66 days and it flows until after the 66 days. So you wait for that flow to end, and that flow would be tahor. And then any new flow after that would be tameh. So that's the machlokas between Rav and Levi. And of course, this is something that has to do with Karis, right? Because if she's considered Tameh, if she's considered, a Nida, so then there's a Chiyuv Karis. So, right, so Dam Leda beflukta the Rav Levi the Itmar Rav Omar Mayan Echaru. Rav says just one long flow. HaTorah Tumasu HaTorah Tiarta. The Torah says that for the first 14 days, it's Tameh for a girl. After that, it becomes Tahor, even though it's one long flow. V'Levi Omar Shnei Mayonu say no, they're separate flows. Nistam HaTameh, once the Tameh flow stops, Niftach HaTorah, then the next flow will be a Tahor flow. Nistam HaTorah, when a Tahor flow stops, Niftach HaTameh, then any flow after the 66 days would be a new Tameh flow. So again, the nafkamina is if there's a flow originating from one period, right, from the 14-day period, that flows into the 66-day period, for example. Okay. Now, dam ziva. What is the dam of ziva? So as I explained earlier, right, when a woman sees dam, so then if it's dam nidas, and she's tamei for 7 days, and then after that, there's this 11-day period of ziva. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. You have a woman who's now very pregnant and is in the 11 days of she's in the 11 days of ziva. Okay, interesting. So this is okay. So I guess if a woman was a nida before, like 1 week before she goes into labor, and then by the time she goes into labor, she's now in her 11-day period. So now, where am I? So therefore, Tam Ziva befultu Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yoshua. The Tanana was told in Mishnah Kishta Shlosha Yomim B'soch Acharoso Yom. So if in these 11 days she's about to give birth, and now for 3 days she's bleeding, for 3 days during these 11 days, and she's very pregnant, she's about to give birth. Im Shofsa Me'es Le'es V'Yolda. If she stopped bleeding for 24 hours and then gave birth, well, then then it was considered that the bleeding stopped and was not connected to the birth. However, Rabbi Eliezer says that she's azava. Because if she was bleeding for 3 days and then immediately gave birth, we say, okay, that blood is just blood related to the birth. It's not dam ziva. But if she bled for 3 days and then stopped for 24 hours and then gave birth, we say we say it's disconnected from the birth and it's dam ziva, and she's a yoledes bizov. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Laila Vayom Klei Shabbos V'Yomo. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua says no. In order for it to be considered for the birth to be considered disconnected from the bleeding, or I guess the bleeding to be considered disconnected from the birth, it has to be a full night and a full day. So if it's just 24 hours, so Rabbi Eliezer would say she is a zava. Rabbi Yoshua would say she is not a zava. And again, the nafkaminas for if sleeping with her would be a chiyuv kares or not. Sheshavsa min atzar v'lo min adam. And when we're talking about when there's this 24 period, it means that she stopped, that she wasn't in pain anymore, even though she kept on bleeding. Interesting. So when we say that she stopped for that period, it means that, right, she was, I guess, in pain for 3 days, and then it stopped for 24 hours, and then she gave birth. So we consider that the initial bleeding and pain was not kashur to the birth. Okay? I guess even if she was bleeding throughout, but she stopped having pain for 24 hours. Okay. Now, ben din ledin, ben din imomenis din nefoshes din imakis. Okay. So now we're going to start seeing a bunch of examples related to kesef kiddushin. So, for example, dini mominus. What's dini mominus that has to do with kares? Well, beflukta the Shmuel of Rababo. So, machlokes of Shmuel of Rababo that we saw way at the beginning of the Masechta. Amar Shmuel shnaim shadonu dinim din enel shenikoyim beis din chotzuf. According to Shmuel, if 2 people judge dini mominus, they're called a chutzpahdik bezdin, but a bezdin nonetheless. Their din is valid at the end of the day. Rababo Amar l'diva calling the name din, whereas Rababo says no siri, a 2-person court is irrelevant. What's an nafkamina? Well, if a 2-person court orders Ruvain to pay Shimon, and Shimon goes and takes that money, well, according to Shmuel, okay, the money is Shimon's. According to Babo, Shimon is a thief, and he stole the money from Reuven. Now, if Shimon goes and he's mekadesh a woman with that money, she's not mikudesh. Well, it depends. If it's theft, you can't be mekadesh with stolen money. If it is rightfully his, he can be mekadesh. And what if another person is mekadesh this woman? Who's she married to? The first person, the second person? Is the second person sleeping with an Eishes Ish, which would be Chiyav Karis or not? So basically, once we're talking about mammon and theft, then we can say that. And what if you're mekadesh a woman with that money? That could lead to Eishes Ish. It could lead to Karis. Dine nefashos beflugta de Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi v'Rabban. The Tanis we learn in the Brayso. Rabbi Yomi says, Rabbi v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh. Remember this case? If you intend to kill one person, but you killed a different person. So Rabbi says that you pay. So Rabbi says that you're not chayiv misa for that, but you do pay money. The Chacham say that you're chayiv misa and you don't pay any money. So what if the victim's family grabbed money? Is it theirs or not? What if they're mekadesh a woman with it? Right, Rabbi Omer v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh. The other day I was saying nefesh tachas nefesh. I made a mistake. Nefesh tachas nefesh. Mammon. We're talking about money. I told him mammon. Nefesh mamish. Wait, how do you know it's talking about money? Maybe it means that you push it, kill the killer. Nema nesina lamala v'nema nesina lamata. It says nesina v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh, but it also says v'nasata. I think v'nasata b'flilim. Is that the pasuk? V'nosin b'flilim. Malahal in mammon, just like over there, v'nosin b'flilim is money. Afkan mammon. So also by niskavin lar gezev, we're talking about money. And therefore, as I said, what if the victim's family takes money forcibly from the killer? So is it rightfully theirs or not? And what if they're mekadesh a woman with that money? Dine makis. Beflukta Rabbi Shmuel v'Rabbanon. Maklokas Rabbi Shmuel and the Rabbanon. It's not makis begimel mishum Rabbi Shmuel amru b'chav gimel. That when it comes to makis, it's with 3 judges, but Rabbi Shmuel says with 23 judges. So what if you judge a case of makis with 3 judges? So Rabbi Shmuel would say it's irrelevant. The Tanakam would say it is relevant. What if you then administer the makis and now you wounded the guy and you made him bleed, you made a chabura? So according to Rabbi Shmuel, you can claim damages for that. And okay, what if then you claim damages and you take the money, you mekadesh a woman with it? Benega la nega, benigay adam, nigay bottom, nigay begadim, nigay adam, right? A tzaras on a human. Beflukta de Rabbi Yoshua v'Rabbanan. That's not in baheres kodem aser halavan. If the tzaras precedes the white hair that grows in the tzaras, tame. That is tame. Imser lavan kodem baheres tar. But if the white hair was there already and then a blotch, a tzaras thing grows around it, tahor. Sufik, what if you're not sure? Tame. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, keha, my keha, omerova, keha, tahor. So basically it's a machlokus between the Rabban and Rabbi Yeshua about if the white hair was there first and then the tzaras grew around it, would it be tahor or tamei? And the nafkamina is, if he's tamei and he goes into the Beis HaMikdash, he'll be chayev kares. Nigei batim, tzaras of the house, beflukta de Rabbi Elazar v'Rab Shimon, beflukta de Rabbi Elazar v'Rab Shimon v'Rabbanan. The Tanan Rabbi Elazar v'Rab Shimon Omer, lo'olam ein habayis tamei. We saw this the other day. Ad sheyireh kishnei grisin al shnei avonim v'shtei ksolim b'keren zavas orko kishnei grisin v'rochbo ki gris. That when it comes to tzaras of the house, it's extremely specific. It has to be in the corner of the house on 2 stones from 2 separate walls, 1 gris by 1 gris on each stone. So for a total of kind of 2 grisim in length and 1 gris in width. A very specific dimensions for the tzaras. My time with Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, ksiv kir ksiv kiros. Ezu kir shuki kiros aviomer zekeren zavas. Okay, it has to be the corner and this very specific thing. So the nafkamina is, what if you paskin that it doesn't have to be a specific thing, and he paskins that the house is tamei, and then whoever's in it or any clothing that are in it, whatever, would become tamei. Then you go to the Beis HaMikdash, so then you would be tamei. Okay, fine. Right? Okay. Now, where am I? Nige begodim beflukta de Reb Nosin ben Avtalmus Rabbanan de Tani Reb Nosin ben Avtalmus Omer minayin lepricha bebegodim shitahara. How do we know that if the garment gets entirely covered with saras, that it is tahor? Nemra karachas v'gabachas ba'adav nemra karachas v'gabachas bebegodim. This is karachas and gabachas by people as well as by garments. Malal parach b'chulo tahor, avkan parach b'chulo tahor. So just like by people, if they get entirely covered in saras, they're actually tahor. The same thing would apply to garments. Friends, we're going to stop here, I think. This was already a lot, but we're not done with the brisa yet. We're still in the middle of this brisa, but we'll stop here and we'll continue going through these different ukimtas tomorrow. Today we learned about the concept of Zakein Mamre and about how it's an expert, a mumche, who rebels against his local bezin. Then they come to Yerushalayim and they ask for a second opinion. And if they say against this expert and he goes back and still continues to tell people to do like he originally said, well then he's chayiv chenek. And we talked about we saw three machlokes in Reb Meir, Reb Shimon, and Reb Yehuda about what is the nature of the dispute. Reb Meir says it has to be something that you're chayiv as donokars v'ashigagas uchadas. Reb Yehuda says something that is written in the Torah, but explained by Torah Sheba'al Peh, written in Torah Sheba'al but explained by Torah Sheba'al Peh. And Reb Shimon says it could be anything really. And then we just started explaining basically all the possibilities of things that could be, of examples of things that you could be chayiv as donokars v'ashigagas uchadas. Peace out.